Hello and welcome to the 48th episode of Long Live Play, the number one Australian PlayStation podcast full of lukewarm takes and mental breaks, hosted by myself, Govinda Whitehurst, and the Roxas to my Sora, Mr. Khayl Adam. If you like what you hear, and I know you do, you can and should review us on Apple Podcasts or give us a follow on Instagram and Twitter at Long Live Pod. Through there, we have a link tree. You can find our YouTube and wherever else you want to connect with us. With that out of the way, Khayl, there you go.
Violated, in a word. Your Kingdom Hearts reference was unneeded, unwarranted, and quite frankly hurtful. And I don't know how to respond. I don't know how to be.
I thought with the big news of the week that would be a fitting, if not ironic, start to the show, just because we discussed our dislike for the way that Kingdom Hearts has been treated as a franchise. And I think that really, this really just highlights that a little bit more as we go on.
It's problematic to me that when you think of Square Enix, your first thought is Kingdom Hearts. That is...
It wasn't. You watched me not think of Kingdom Hearts first. First, I thought of Final Fantasy X because I said Riku, and then I went to Squall in Final Fantasy VIII, but I thought I hadn't played that. But I felt disingenuous. Now, the reason I chose Squall initially was friend of the show, Sean, did what I like to call a Govinda and finished a Final Fantasy game he'd been putting off for 20 years, and he finished Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah, no, I was very impressed. He messaged, I guess, the two of us, and I took charge of that. I was very impressed to hear it.
So now he's on to Final Fantasy VII Remake, which I told him I didn't love it. Like, it was definitely cool, had a lot of cool moments, but the combat really just didn't cut it, and that's pretty much all the game is, for me, personally.
I hate to be that guy, but that's on my recommendation. That was my recommendation, Govinda. And yes, I told him that your opinions are bad and that on our scale, that is a fucking travesty what you did to that game. To give
what would you give it? What would you give it?
I think I said
7.5?
a 9.5. No, I think I said a 9.5.
You're fucking crazy if you think that game's a 9.5. You're putting that in Elden Ring world, dude. Are you crazy?
I'll be honest, I was not entirely sober when I said that. I think realistically, it's probably a 9. No, it's probably a 9 for me.
This is... We just figured it out, Khayl. We just figured out what we're going to do for our 1 year special. By the way, we're going to do a 1 year special, which will be episode 52, not episode 50. Don't know what it's going to be yet, and it may be nothing. You're saying the very best the medium has to offer and a benchmark for which to develop. No, it's just not, though.
Preach it.
I'll give you an 8. An outstanding effort that goes above and beyond the industry expectations. I'll give you an 8 for Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Well, that's the thing. It's my opinion. In my opinion. You don't get to tell me what that is.
Over a 30-minute... We're going to do a debate. This is going to be our special. We're going to do a 1 hour debate about why we are 2 points different in the review of Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Classic Govinda. Debate me, bro. What was the question? How am I going? Good.
The same question every week, pretty much.
Good. And yet I still struggle with it every week.
Look, I'm actually looking. I might have been a little harsh on a 7. I might have been a little harsh on a 7. I maybe would... No, it's not, though. It's not.
It's not on
You're
our
saying
scale.
It's rough on our rubric, and it's really not. It's great. I'm saying the game is great.
We've discussed how correct and scientific our rubric is, and so you're right. It's not rough.
It's not rough at all. It's a great game. I'm not saying it's a masterpiece like you are, though. I really can't. I don't think you can call it a masterpiece. I don't.
It's a tough one. I think a lot of professional critics.
Save it. Sorry. Save it for 52, dude. Save it for episode 52. The 1 year special. We're going to be different. We celebrate 1 years and not 50 episodes because that feels really
Wait, what are we doing?
Are we 2 weeks shy?
Ranking Final Fantasy games? Is that what we decided we're doing?
No, we're going to have a 1 hour debate about the score, our review score of Final Fantasy VII Remake. And that means I've got to finish it because I still have not finished that game.
That's a huge pronouncement for you to make, but let's see what happens with that.
No, we're not going to do that. I'm dead serious. That's not going to happen. I don't want to waste an hour doing that. I'll give you 10 minutes at the start of the show on episode 52 and we can really get into it for 10 minutes each, maybe.
I would rate the Final Fantasy games. That could be a fun thing for us to do.
I think that's not fun because I haven't played all of them, so I can only rank the 2.5 games I've actually played.
I don't know what's worse.
3 games. 4 games. Oh no, I've actually played a few. I can really only start from 7 and beyond, which is kind of sad.
I can't think of one I haven't played, which I think is sadder. I think that's much sadder.
Yeah,
for
you
me.
are ultimate weeb.
Except like really weird offshoot like Crystal Chronicles stuff, and even then I think I might have played that.
Look, Khayl, I got to stop you there, and I apologize for doing so. But we're 5 minutes in, and we haven't spoken about ourselves at all, and that feels very strange.
It's troubling.
We are all about the narcissism, and I need to know how you are going, and not why your review of Final Fantasy VII Remake is incorrect.
I'm glad you brought up narcissism because I'm writing a feature article, and in it, I'm realizing what a pretentious ass I am because I'm linking to old reviews in the feature, and I'm rereading like reviews I wrote years ago, and I remain a pretentious ass.
Why are you pronouncing ass like that?
Because I think I'm self-conscious of the Australian accent. We say arse. We don't even say
It's
it like
an Australian
that.
podcast, dude. Fucking drink it in, baby. Ass. Oh, yeah, that's it. That fucking
That's
Aussie
the
tone.
good stuff. Ass. I like the American way, though. It's got a different, it just hits different.
I like the Irish, really. Arse. You know?
Arsa.
Arse.
Arsa.
Shove it up your arse.
It's powerful. It is powerful.
It is. Just like the Irish.
I don't know. Life's good. It's been a busy week. A lot going on. Pretty drained, to be honest. I'm kind of tired, even though I just had 4 days off inexplicably. So I don't know what to tell you. I think that's just me now at age 33.
Are we not talking about you buying a house? Or like...
Oh, yeah. I put an offer on a house. That's fine
Super
to
casually.
say. Yeah, that's fine to say. That's fun.
I was like, that's kind of what I was expecting with the how you going, and you're just like not talking about it at all. Okay, let's go back. The house is boring now. I'm over it. We know about it. I'm over it. It's
Just
boring.
to be clear,
I don't need to know more. But tell me about the feature. What is it about?
Well, no, just on that, I need to keep my working class credentials. It's not a big house. It's not an incredible house. It is a home. Just want everyone to know that I'm not some kind of like highfalutin coastal elite, and I am in fact a working class schmo. Like the rest
Are
of you,
you blue
know what I'm
collar?
saying?
Or
You know
you're
what
blue
I'm-
collar, aren't you?
You know what I mean? Comrades? All of us
What
together?
are the collars? Stop talking. What are the collars? Acknowledge what I'm saying.
Blue collar is like a manual worker, a laborer. A white collar. You are a white collar.
Is
I am blue collar. You are white collar. That's what it is.
what's white collar though? Is it?
You wear like a white collared office shirt to your office job, you bourgeois bitch.
I work at home, so would I just be called a?
Oh, that's
like a
even
track
worse,
pant,
dude.
A track pant collar.
You people are ruining the economy.
I'm a no shirt worker. I just work at home with no shirt on. Pants are maybe, but I'm always chest high on the on any of the meetings I'm in, so no one even knows.
You and my wife are ruining this economy. You take your high-paying city jobs and you move anywhere in the country with them, and you just ruin it. You ruin it for the rest of us.
That's the way it should be. I do not believe in this thing where you have to completely change your entire life to go work at a specific location in the world. That seems really odd when I can do everything just fine from the comfort of my home.
What a white-collar opinion. What if you need to build a house, Govinda? You've got to go there and do it.
I'm sorry, I don't fucking have a house. You're the one who just bought up a place. Like now you're coming at me like this? That's crazy.
Right.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, but that's it. It's been. Oh, you want to know about the feature?
Well,
Is that
I
what
asked
we're
about it
doing?
about 20 minutes ago. Dude, like you're off the rails today, dude.
We
You did
are
have
off the
one beer,
rails.
and that was too many. I need you to focus up.
Oh, look, it's not out there. I think I'll talk about it next week. I don't know if like I can talk about it. It's not published yet, and that's a weird dickish thing to say, but this is who I am.
All right, well, cool.
Yeah, I mean, and for another thing, it's about a PC game, and I know how you feel about that. You
no,
might
shh,
veto
we
it.
don't talk. Shh,
There you
We
go.
don't talk about that. We don't mention the P word here.
What about you? How was your wedding? That's fun.
Well, let's clarify. It wasn't my wedding. I'm definitely not married.
Well.
It was actually very, very fun. It was a very good wedding. I'd say probably, and don't take this the wrong way. I really hope you don't. It's the best wedding I've ever been to.
What the fuck are you talking about? My wedding was so romantic. It was incredible. It was public.
No, it was
even,
just you just had a
some might say.
small, cute wedding that was fine. It was great, right? I had a great time. The dinner was probably the best wedding dinner I've ever had. That place was lit.
That was nice.
Amazing,
Yeah.
right? But the actual wedding and like the party vibes and like the dance floor and stuff, which you just couldn't have being in New
Yeah.
York with just your close friends and family, was awesome. It was very fun. And we went to Bright in Victoria, which is a little town northeast of Melbourne, kind of up in the mountains near all like the ski fields and stuff. But being that it's autumn, it was just really nice and pretty. And like the temperature was like, mwah, you know, like cool days, cold nights. The leaves have actually like changed colors. And I was like, what country am I in? Like,
yeah, Victoria's awesome. It's great.
I'm used to Queensland's summer and cold summer.
As someone who lived in Melbourne for 2 years, I don't know where Bright is at all. Like, I know so little about
you
that
wouldn't.
state.
It's a drive, like 3.5 hours, like north. So I don't imagine you had a car, let alone left the city.
We had a car. We did not leave the city.
Yeah. So that was sick. As far as I know, no one has COVID yet. But I did get really drunk for 2 days, and I was hitting people's vapes pretty hard, which sounds like a fantastic way to spread the vid. So I'm waiting for that group chat to just pop off with people being like, I've got it. It's happening.
You did this to me. God damn. You have been... We were playing Destiny last night. Segue. But you were coughing up a lung. And we are theorizing that it is in you already. Coursing through your veins.
I know it's beyond the 90 days they say you're immune for, but I feel like it's just a waning immunity. So it's not like you have no immunity. And I feel like I think I'm kind of still good. Like I even if someone has it, I'd be good. You know what I mean? But then I was flying home and I got a message from my household saying that someone else has COVID. So now I've fled to my girlfriend's place and I've been living here for the last 3 days.
That's big. It's a big move in the relationship. It's beautiful.
It's a good test, It's a good move-in test,
My version of that was we just went to Thailand for 2 months together without having ever lived.
There you go.
It's called a trial by fire, I like to call it.
So, yeah, I'm just living here. I'm recording in a very foreign space right now. I've got fruit behind me, which is pretty chill.
Which led me to comment earlier, and I will reiterate it here for our fans. I noticed an orange there, and I said to you that the orange is my third favorite fruit.
Why third? Like, what's your top two?
It's a perfect conversation prompt to say something like that, because you need to know what they are, don't you, Govinda? You need to know what the
you know what? I actually don't care about the top two. What's your 4 and 5?
That's a good question, and in this
there
essay, I will elaborate.
I'm going to give you 20 minutes to go through this. Let's go.
I think the top spot has to go to the banana. The banana is a versatile fruit. Some say it's a vegetable. And that's debatable too, because I believe the seeds are inside. I don't really know what the difference between fruit and vegetables are. But I like the banana. I think it's very versatile. I think I'm always in the mood for it. Then it's the apple, specifically the Granny Smith, which is the correct apple. I'll have a Fiji or a Fiji if I have to. Perhaps a Gala, but I prefer the Granny Smith.
Now, just to clarify, you're saying green apple. You're a green apple guy.
I'm a green apple, yeah. Yep.
Interesting. I don't mind a green apple for sure. I'm a pink lady guy myself when it comes to apples. Now, the thing that throws me... The pink lady's good because I think it's the best of both worlds, right? You've got the crunch of the green, but the sweetness of the red. Which, because the red apples, like the Royal Gala, whatever they are, they suck.
Yeah, they are the dud. That is the cheapest of the apples.
You're eating sand. They are soft. There's no crunch. It's not satisfying, right? If I wanted to eat something soft and yum, I'd have a pear.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned the pear because that is my number 4 after the orange.
Interesting. Now,
I like a pear.
I need to ask because I feel like it's being left out or you've forgotten about it, or maybe, God, heaven forbid, you just don't like it. Where is the mango, though, Khayl?
I like a mango, but a mango is a very seasonal fruit here. You really only get it like
There's
once a year.
nothing wrong with that. See, because like the fruits that you named are the generics, right? Banana,
they're the
apple, orange.
Yeah, they're the old.
The mainstays for me,
reliables.
they're not sitting at the top because it's an abundance thing. There's an abundance of them, so they're never sitting at the top. I want those like rare little treats, right? Like mango's like my OG. Mango's number 1 for me, and then we're moving into like peach territory again. Very seasonal. I'm a summer stone fruit kind of guy.
The thing I'm with you on the mango. The thing with the peach is that they're very hit and miss. Oftentimes they'll be bruised. There may be an imperfection to the
Now,
peach.
for the sake of this, and just to make it easier for everyone, I'm classifying this as like the best mango I've ever had, the best peach I've ever had, the best of the best, because every fruit is like that. Bananas, like you pick one up and you're like, it's too soft. A banana for me, if it's not in the perfect window of ripeness.
The Goldilocks zone. Just right.
if you're not in the Goldilocks zone of ripeness, I'm out. If an apple's too bruised, I'll take like one, maybe small one, but if it's got a few bruises, I'm out, dude. I'm out. Oranges can be dry, like there's just nothing in them. You're like, what happened? What happened to you?
It's true.
You know what I mean?
It's true. I just curate my fruit really well. I'm really onto that bowl. You know what I mean?
I smell fruit. It's all about smelling it. Anyway, fuck. We've done this long enough, Khayl. We've done this long enough.
We should probably talk about some goddamn video games. And of course, we continue to play Destiny, but there's not really a lot more to say except that we are up to the final mission. I can confirm the final mission of the Witch Queen DLC. And I hope to finish it.
Wait. I'm sorry. We're actually not. We're still in mission 18 of 19, but we're like halfway through that.
We're at step 18 of 19. We're on the last mission. I believe there will just be some small little how do you do, go see Ikora situation.
Okay. Well, we'll see. Well, no, we're still in a level.
Well, we are, and it's a tough one. They've all been tough.
Yeah, the last thing that we did was pretty clutch. Honestly, it's very fun. It feels very much like we're doing just like mini raids constantly. It's been challenging. The last one particularly was a lot of puzzles and like figuring stuff out while we're fighting a million things at once.
Shout out to your brother Goro, who really did. He stepped it up. He got up to his light level.
Look, we used to do raids back in the day, but he finally got that light level up to something that was decent and manageable, and comms were on fleek. Let's put it that way.
There was a moment where we clicked in.
Now, I'd like to just highlight myself as the unintended leader of the group. You
were specifically the fire team leader. It was
I was
official,
and I think I held the banner of fire team leader pretty well. You know, oh shit, I was like making calls. I was remembering the sequences of our little runes that we had to remember. We did pretty. It was
yeah. It was a nice time, but that's Destiny, and it will during these dark times. I think it will sustain us. It will be interesting to see what happens once we get through the campaign and we sort of hit the light level, which I think is a ways off, but, you know, we'll see. Destiny comes and goes. You and I both played something new and interesting this week, Govinda. The Stanley Parable Ultimate Deluxe Edition came to PlayStation platforms. Now, I have a bit of an inbuilt biases to this game, which I had decided in my head this was a nerdy-ass game for PC nerds, and I had basically written it off in my mind. But it released for PlayStation, and it's one of those things where it's like, you know it's going to be good, but also somehow I had not had it spoilt for me. How would you describe this game? And we won't spoil it. It's short enough. It's cheap enough.
Oh, so you snuck in before I had a chance to, because I didn't want to be the one that have to describe this game, so I was going to ask you how you would describe it, and then you got me. It's a first-person
it's a walking
puzzle adventure where Stanley is an office worker and his job is literally to get prompts on the screen to push a button for a certain amount of time, and he pushes it and he does that repeatedly every day, all day. Doesn't know where the orders come from, doesn't know what the button presses actually do, and one day something changes and shit happens, dude. Like,
and there is a segment of the audience that are just rolling their eyes because this is a very well-known game. If you're like a PC player, you know this game. Like, yeah, it's a tough one to talk about.
Essentially, it's like Groundhog Day, the game, where you go through every day and you walk away from your computer and you walk through the office and then you get given a choice and there's a narrator narrating the whole story to you, but you have your own choices that you can make. So you always get to a decision where it's like, you're going to the conference room. So Stanley takes the door on the left and you can go through the door on the right. And the narrator will adapt what they're talking about just to kind of match what you are doing or not doing. And it's very clever.
It's even more interesting than that because the narration is almost on a delay. Like he says that a little bit ahead of time. So you kind of... It's a hard one to talk about because this originally released in 2013 and I think it probably would have hit stronger back then. It's just that like video games have done this since, like the nature of what it is to do what you're told in a video game. Like this is things that's, you know, we saw this in BioShock way back in whatever that was. I guess,
but that was something that doesn't get revealed until the very end. There's no narration.
It's true.
And it's really just, you find that out late game, whereas this is built around it. And I think, I can't think of a game that has done it like this at all.
I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but I know this would have been more groundbreaking, let's say, at the time. I feel like I've sort of seen this idea.
Maybe, but I could be wrong. Like, I just maybe haven't seen it or played it, but I just don't think there's been anything that's been done to this level where he'll be mid-sentence, and then I jumped off a railing and went to like a lower platform, and he's like, whoa, what are you doing? And like, obviously it was designed that way, and they were expecting someone to think to jump off that platform, but like,
yes,
even for me, I was like, oh, that's crazy. Like, I didn't expect that.
There is some pretty incredible... Again, it's kind of hard to talk about without really spoiling it, but like I had a moment where it was like, I thought I'd actually gotten out of bounds and broken the game, but even that was accounted for, and the narrator like was like, hey, did you not think... Of course we know about that. Like, what do you think you're doing? Like, it does some very clever...
I haven't even done that. Like, this is like semi-spoilery, and I don't know how to say it without being a semi-spoiler, but there's a point where I got put into another game that I'd played before.
This is very meta. It's very the nature of video games. It's, if you know games, it kind of does speak to that part of you, like the, you know. Yeah,
it's true. And the game that I got put into, like, I think there'd be a lot of people that are playing this for the first time that maybe aren't super into games that wouldn't know what it is. Like, I got into it immediately. I knew exactly what game I was in. And I was like, how am I in this game? Like, I don't think this developer made this game. And
yeah, you wonder how that all... Well, this all came from a mod. This was originally a mod that the creator, I believe his name is Davey... it's escaping me again. God damn it. But this was a mod, and it eventually was funded into a full release. And it really has its roots in that kind of like indie mod scene. And that's why it is
what was a mod?
The Stanley Parable. It was a... it was a... what do they call it? It's like... built out of the Half-Life engine, like everything else was way back in the day. Source? I believe it was a Source engine mod, which is, again, not something you'd know about, Govinda. It's like the nerdiest PC stuff.
Yeah, it sounds bad. Now, something that I thought was pretty fun with this game is there is one trophy in this game to play the Stanley Parable 10 years later. So theoretically, you can't platinum this game for 10 years.
I love it. It's so, like, weird.
It's weird, but obviously, like, I don't know if I want to tell you this, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Obviously, you can fake it.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, like...
so I got that trophy yesterday.
Yeah, right.
Because you just go to your system clock, push it forward 10 years, and then start playing the game again. Cool. But even, like, to get an idea of what this game is like, at the start of the game, when you boot it up, it'll ask you to set your clock, and you set the clock. And then I reloaded again, and it asked me to set my clock again, and I set my clock again. And then it goes into this whole spiel about, like, hey, like... Obviously, I don't know if what time you're setting is the correct time, but thank you for being so attentive and setting your clock every time you booted up the game. We really appreciate it. And and they go through this whole thing, and they go, hey, you know what, just because you're being so nice, next time when we boot it up, just put your favorite time in, like, whatever. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
It's like, very weird.
You do things without expecting to elicit a reaction, and then somehow you go down this little rabbit hole of crazy reactions for little things that you're doing that shouldn't be like that.
Yeah. It's very hard to describe, but it's like, if you're someone that loves these kinds of games, like there's a lot to... Well, like, for example, so the expanded deluxe content or whatever is really odd in that it's sort of just I don't know, like a meta commentary on the nature of DLC. And like, you just go through a bunch of rooms and like the narrator, like it just starts showing you Steam reviews for the original game, and like the whole thing is like, you know, this game was like either A, perfect, or B, the worst thing on the fucking planet, and like how do you follow that up? And so here's just this. It's not even a new game. It's basically just the same thing again. Like it's... Yeah,
I feel like there's so much more to this that I haven't seen yet, but like I get to a point where I'm like, where else can I go? And I'm sure there's other places and things to do, but like...
I looked into it a little bit. I think I've got like 5 or 6 quote-unquote endings, and then, you know, you just sort of do the same thing again. But I think there's more than a dozen, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. Just back to the trophy thing, there was just one trophy that I was just seeing. I was like, how easy is this platinum? I realized that 20% of the people had the 10-year one. And I was like, oh, well, this game came out last week, so surely there's a way to fuck that.
There's an easy way, yep.
But then there was another one that was like, go to door 430 and knock on it 5 times. And like, you go to door 430, you knock on it 5 times, and then the narrator's like, oh, surely you're not doing this just for a trophy.
Yeah, they clearly hate trophies, is the other part of this. Like, they very much make fun of you for it. Like,
But it's not even, like, it goes so much further than that. And then he's like, okay, well, look, I can't give you the trophy just for knocking on one door 5 times. So go to this door and knock on that a few times. Okay, cool. Now go to this computer and push the button on the computer. Now jump on the desk. Now do this. And he gets you to run all the way around the office doing a bunch of shit just to get this trophy. And I'm like, it's so clever and, like, interesting. They really subvert expectations constantly.
I didn't truly understand the context, but I think in the original release on Steam, there was an achievement you couldn't get, or at least they refer to it in this deluxe content, because they take you to a room where there's a machine and all you have to do is pull the lever to get that ungettable trophy, and even then you pull it and the machine's out of order. And it's just like... it's just like, it's hard to describe, but I think it's worth checking out. Although it's certainly not for everyone. My wife, Erin, bounced off this very hard. She was not in the mood for the somewhat repetitive nature of it. Yeah.
Well, it is very much that. Like, there's times where... There was once where I went to a certain route and then it went through this long process and then I died and go back and you wake up again. And then I went there again thinking I could find something different, and I realized I was just stuck in the same long loop of things going on. And I had to just be like, all right, restart. I can't go through all of that again. And then I'm like, but surely there's got to be something else down there. Because it's a huge kind of area, but I must just be missing something, but I just couldn't figure it out, and I restarted.
It's an interesting one. I think I'm done with it. Like, you honestly can get an ending in 10 minutes, or even less. I think there's a trophy for like 4 minutes.
4 minutes, like 20, or 4 minutes 30 seconds. You have to get an ending.
I managed to play it for about 2 hours. I just ran as many different variations of it as I could, and I think that's probably it for me. Like, it was a fun little sojourn.
Yeah, you really don't have to do too much.
It is interesting though. I think it's a recommend. It's pretty cheap-ish.
Yeah. For sure, recommend if you like fun little quirky games that are just like make you think and are interesting, for sure.
Yeah. All right, Govinda, that's all well and good. Have you played anything else, should we say?
Not really. I haven't played much this week. I actually had work to do, which was really out of the ordinary. And I started watching The Expanse, which has been kind of sucking me in a little bit. No one's ever recommended it to me.
Yeah, is that the show that I recommended to you like years ago, or no? This is a different sci-fi epic that I knew you would love.
I can't confirm or deny. Maybe someone recommended it to me. I just don't know, and I don't... Oh, no, that's what it was. I was flying back from Melbourne after this wedding, and my friend Ryan told me to watch it, and I listened to all of his recommendations all the time, and I definitely downloaded some and watched it on the plane. And I was like, I love this. It's the best show I've ever seen. Why had no one told me about this before?
It's probably my greatest source of impotent rage that I've made recommendations over the years, and my closest friends have, like, completely ignored them, but then years later truly come to appreciate them, and it's so fucking annoying. It's so annoying.
I have umbrage with this, and let me tell you why. I always give you recognition when you do. Obviously not on this podcast, because I can't let the public know that I do this, but I messaged you privately and said, didn't you recommend this to me? And you were like, yeah. And I was like, it is sick.
You did do that this time. You did.
I do it all the time. I can't think of another show. I'm
trying to think too. I think Battlestar Galactica was another one. I can't remember.
That was another one, and I feel like I gave you reco for that too. I was like, this is good.
I do have taste, Govinda.
You do have taste of sci-fi. Good sci-fi. That's it.
Thank you. Yeah, that means a lot. That's really big of you.
You're welcome, dude. You're welcome. You needed it. And I felt like you needed a win today, and I'm glad I could give that to you.
It's big coming from such a small man.
I think I'm bigger than you now.
Time for some quickfire news. Would you believe that Rogue Legacy 2 is not only real, it's out right now, but it's not available on PlayStation platforms? Which makes this a controversial pick to include in the quickfire news. I know.
Especially up front.
But again, I know you love this game, so I knew I could get a rise out of you.
At least the first one, obviously. I haven't played number 2. I do love it, and it's strange because it's a roguelite, and I'm really bad at them. I can't finish them. I can never finish a roguelike game. I just can't do it, and I've accepted that in my life, and I don't feel like I need to, but I played Rogue Legacy 1 a lot.
Yeah, I played a lot of it too, on Vita, in fact, which was the correct...
Oh, dude. Perfect system for it.
It was.
I honestly don't even necessarily want this on PlayStation. It maybe is a Switch game.
Yeah, it's tough. So this is currently available on Steam and Xbox, notably. It's on Xbox. The developers...
Ouch. That's the exclusive I'm missing the most. Ow.
Would it blow you away to know that this game, and I believe the previous one too, was created by 2 programmers? Small team, just 2 guys.
You know what? I would believe it for sure. And the one that I think is more that I've always thought is the most impressive, or very like more impressive than this, honestly, is Stardew Valley being one person.
That is deeply impressive.
Especially since all like the DLC and expansions that he's added to Stardew, like very impressive. Sorry, continue. I'm excited for the chocolatier. I can't wait. I hope that's this year.
Yeah, me too. Would be a shame if it didn't come to PlayStation though, because then you wouldn't be allowed to talk about it due to your own self-imposed rules.
Don't need to talk about it, but as long as I can play it on my Switch. Yee.
So they Celador Games, took to Twitter responding to someone asking when it would come to PlayStation. They just said, we're just taking it slowly, one step at a time. So no firm date, but very excited about this. These are lovely games.
Do you think this is like the year of the indie for us?
What else
I'm playing Nobody Saves the World, Rogue Legacy 2, Stanley Parable. Do you think like it's an empty void in the middle of the year of AAAs, but there could be some decent indies coming out? Because that Trek to Yomi, is that what it's called? That's coming out soon. That looks wicked too. So
now, first of all, I wanted to make a controversial asshole statement because this is who I am.
Oh, they're not indies. Oh.
No, worse than that. I don't know. I think I prefer AAA games. I get it, but it's like...
No. Like, you do, though. Like, I prefer blockbuster movies over little indie movies, but every now and again, it's nice to watch a sick indie movie and have a great time. I saw the Northman, which probably isn't indie because it's A24, but it's not like your classic blockbuster movie. I had a great time with it. It was fantastic.
The line has blurred. Like, now we have indie games that have budgets of millions of dollars, and that really isn't what I... Like, this feels like
Looking
an indie
at you,
game.
Kenner.
Yeah, that's exactly the... I mean, technically, like, if you have a publisher, you aren't an indie game by my verdict. Like, that's what it means. You are independent.
I think
it's...
indies have a vibe, though. You know what I mean? Like,
it does.
It's not necessarily a publisher or whatever. Indie is a vibe of game. It's like a low budget, not AAA action, whatever. It's just like a little side scroll or something. I've noticed that I had this big indie period, and I realized it was all tied to the Vita.
Oh yeah, that was the indie machine for me too. Definitely.
Yeah, and now that I like Nobody Saves the World is awesome. Like I'm very much enjoying it, but this feels weird to play it on a big screen with a controller and not in my hand. Like I'm playing it being like, I want to get this on Switch if it's available because I think it would be a better experience.
It's so funny really thinking about this because I was trying in my head, I was like, you know, like Hotline Miami, that was like really the peak of Vita indies. And then I realized
Best Easter egg in any PlayStation game ever is The Last of Us Part 2, where there's the chick playing the Vita that you sneak up on. And she's playing Hotline Miami, and you can hear the playing in the headphones. It's wicked.
It made me remember Devolver Digital, which is paradoxically a publisher of indies. Like, they are synonymous with indie games, and it
doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense,
but it also makes perfect sense. So look, that's all well and good.
I'm excited for Rogue Legacy 2 if it ever comes out. It feels like it's like an exclusive or something to Xbox, which is real gross. But anyway, it's fine. Whatever, Khayl.
But enough about weird indies. Let's talk about real video games, aka AAA awesome JRPGs like Final Fantasy XVI, which is allegedly in the final stretch of development, Govinda. This brings joy to my cold, dead, indie-hating heart, and I'm very excited for this.
I am I'm cautiously optimistic that maybe this is going to bolster the year of 2022 with some better games towards the end. I'm skeptical that it's actually coming out this year still. I would love to think that there's this new trend now that since E3 is gone, that people just are like, we'll tell you the game's coming in 3 months before it's coming, and you have 3 months of hype, and then it's here. That'd be awesome. But Square Enix doesn't have a great track record, and I'm skeptical.
Final Fantasy is a fascinating beast, because probably more than a decade ago now, but I would have told you this was my favorite series of video games. But the truth is, you and I just happened to be playing these during the golden age. Like, we had 7, 8, and 9 already out. I remember 10 coming out.
And
like,
10 and 12 for me were like the pinnacle for me.
And then we got 13, which I wasn't into. We had 13's sequels, which were worse. And
I don't know if we've spoken about it on this podcast, but 13 was the ultimate disappointment in my gaming life. Continue.
And I'll never forget how gaslit you were by yourself There was
I
like
wanted to like it so bad. For like
you-
maybe 15 hours or so, I was like, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good, it's good.
And
it's
I was
good,
right.
It's good.
I was right there with you. I was along for the ride. I thought it was a lot, but there was a tipping point where both of us just realized, we're like, this is not 10.
Just bad design choices. I think the auto button in combat really threw me off. I was like, what do you mean auto combat? Like, that's the game. Otherwise, I'm running down a corridor. Like, what? And then there was also the thing I'll always remember is that it's like you get these weapons and you're like, hey, upgrade them. I'm like, awesome, I'll upgrade them, cool. And then you can break them down and you get like a minuscule fraction of the things that you put into it. And you're like, well then why would I upgrade now and not just wait until way later in the game? And then for some reason at like hour 30, the game's like, oh, we're open world now, enjoy.
You are actively punished for upgrading earlier weapons because the later ones have higher potential. It's like, it's such a
ridiculous.
weird design.
It would have been fine if I got 90% of the materials back, right? Like if I got a huge chunk back, I'd be like, that's cool, whatever. At least I'm good now and I can get better and I can still break stuff down and get the stuff back and it'll be all good. But you got literally nothing back. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, who decided this was a good idea? And like, there was no shops. There was no, like, it was like you just go to a fucking save crystal and it's like, you can buy shit here if you want. I was like, oh, there's no personality to this at all. It's fucking aggressive. Anyway, sorry, we don't have to talk about Final Fantasy 13. I'm going through some... It's bringing up some shit right now.
It is funny, though, because in talking to Sean this week, and like, you know, because he was thinking about getting into Final Fantasy IX, and there really just was such a magic during that era, and I truly think it's gone. Like, say what you will about 14, which is a fantastic game. It's an MMO, and I don't think you can really compare it to these mainline titles. But I'm hopeful. Like 15 again, I think I gaslit myself into liking that one more than I did.
I think it's funny now because I think looking back at 15, I'm similar. Like I don't think it definitely was not my favorite Final Fantasy, and it's probably closer to the bottom for any Final Fantasy I've actually played. But I think it's better now too. Like I think if you go and play it now, like a lot of things that were a problem then are way better now. The car can go off the road and shit like that. Like,
yeah, that's awesome because I beat it.
I don't know if that's real, but
when it came out, before all the episode
and when it was average,
all the other inclusions. I played the fucking
that game did
version.
feel super half baked in terms of its story. Like, hey, you watch this anime and this movie and stuff to have any idea what's going on. Also, the ending is just like, well, here it's over, and you're like, what? What happened? There's no build up, whatever.
The final sequence is fucking unbelievable, though. I will say that it ends very, very strongly.
I'm still tempted. I'm like, do I have a cloud save? Can I go back and get this? Because all I need to do is beat a fucking tortoise and I have the platinum trophy.
But I don't know. And then we have 7 Remake, though, which, as we discussed at the top of the show, I think is incredible. So this new era of Final Fantasy could be good. This 16 could be good.
I know this is going to sound controversial. So my biggest problem with Final Fantasy VII Remake is I think the combat system is a little messy. Like it's just kind of all over the place and it's messy, right? And that's what brings it down for me the most. The characters are still great and they're probably better than ever because before they were just tiny, weird little oblongs. The world is awesome. It feels good and there's things to do and whatever. But the combat just felt messy to me. And similar to Final Fantasy 15, the combat just felt like messy. And we spoke about it last week. A
little floaty.
And just... like, there's too much going on for me to manage. Like, especially in 7, I got to swap. I have to play as other characters. I'm like, I want to be Cloud. Let me be Cloud. What are you talking about? But we spoke about it at the end of last week and how Square Enix said that they don't want to keep trying to make Western RPGs when they're not very good at it and they don't come out very well. And Final Fantasy 15 and Final Fantasy 7 Remake feels to me like it was a result of them trying to make games for Western audiences, more westernized versions of their own games. And I'm hoping at some point they start going back to what they're good at. Or not like they weren't good, but like back to what they know and back to their roots a little bit. Like, this is going to sound crazy, but I almost just wish Final Fantasy 16 had like an active time battle system again.
Yeah. It's funny too, because people will tell you that can't be done, but then the clear rebuttal to that is Persona 5. Like, it can be done.
100%.
You can have awesome turn-based combat, and it can be
great.
100%.
And like the active one makes it better because you're like, oh, this timer's going on. I have to make decisions quickly. But it's still like the strategy's still there, and it's less than me like tap X a million times and then hit square when you can, and then like it showed the most in Final Fantasy 13 because I'm like, So instead of me just tapping X like it is kind of doing, I just make it do it by itself. I'm just go auto.
It's so funny that you say that, though, because I was playing a little bit of Persona yesterday just to jump in, and I definitely set all my characters to auto except Joker. Like, I only control him.
That's fair. That is fair. I did that too a lot of the time. But I didn't set, like, I think in 13 you only played as Lightning.
You were different people in different chapters, as I remember. Like, sometimes you'd be Snow.
Well, but you don't swap characters, right?
I think you play as one... Fuck, who knows? I can't remember.
Yeah, I don't know.
It was too long ago.
Yeah, I don't know. I really loved 12 for its like gambit system. Like, there's a way to make it feel more Final Fantasy than making it a full-on action game. Like, I don't want a Devil May Cry when I'm playing Final Fantasy.
It's just, I think we're too fucking Advent children now. We're too far down the rabbit hole. Final Fantasy needs to be bigger and more action-packed every time. Like, it can't just... They never went backwards. That's what made them so unique. Like, every game was different and...
It's true. Every game had a different system.
So who knows?
So again, we got so sidetracked we've not even spoken about 16 once, but I'm super keen for it because I think the like kind of knights and kings setting...
fantasy. Yeah, the return
to
fantasy
setting is awesome. Like, I'm super keen for that. I played Final Fantasy 1/3. Like, how do they fucking number this shit? I played it like for 20 minutes one time. That was all I've ever done. I was like, oh, okay, whatever. Full AAA version of this, I'm down for. It looks
It's
cool.
funny, though, because like as much as I love fantasy settings, my favorite Final Fantasy games are the 6, 7, and 8, which are futuristic sci-fi steampunk kind of thing. Like, I kind of like that.
That's true. That's true.
But anyway, who knows what Final Stages means with this company? We could be looking at another few years.
I really hope it comes out this year because then it will just add to things to do because I'm hopeful for Spoken, but I'm very skeptical at the same time. Like, it looks cool, but is it going to be cool? I don't know. Whereas I feel like I can trust the Final Fantasy brand a little bit more to hold my attention because even 15 not being my favorite, I got to the end, I almost platinumed it, you know?
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Govinda, I'm going to move you right along, if I can. Would it shock you to know that PS5 supply shortages are looking to continue, perhaps into 2024? Now, you gave me grief for including this, as it was too obvious to even comment on, but I think it's pertinent.
Well, look, it wasn't too obvious. This comes from the Intel CEO, Pat Gelsinger. I'm going to go with Gelsinger. In a recent interview with CNBC, he said that shortages may last for 2 years or more. We believe the overall semiconductor shortage will drift into 2024, Gelsinger told CNBC. So, drift into 2024, like what? 6 months ago, he was saying they're going to go into 2023. Drifting into 2024 means what? It could be January, it could be February, it could be March. It could be, like, I'm not super surprised. You just kind of hope at this point that so many consoles are out there that less people are needing to buy them so that the stock will kind of catch up a little bit. I saw another article on Gamer Rant saying the chip shortage may be ending. So
that's fun.
Who really knows what's going on? It says information gathered by Reuters suggests that changes in the stock status of the biggest suppliers of semiconductors, Intel and Qualcomm and others, will lead to increased availability. So who knows what's real? This was 4 days ago. That one was like a day ago. Who knows what's real? And all I need to say is that I have a PS5, so I'm good.
Yeah, I've had mine since day dot, and you know what?
Nah,
I recommend it. Go out and grab one.
From what I can see, it seems easier to get them. Like, a friend of mine got one recently. He definitely had to like hunt it down, and it took a little while, but he got one eventually. So look, I don't have too much to say on that.
What do you think about this little factoid? Like, just this past March, both Xbox and Nintendo Switch outsold the PS5. It seems like Sony is struggling to secure their own. What do you think about that?
So Nintendo Switch, we need to take out of the picture completely because they're using the oldest technology ever, and there's no shortage of that.
Sick burn.
Firstly, they also Nintendo Switch has always sold the most. Like, it's like a Wii situation.
It's true.
Like,
it's true.
Like, the Wii was just outselling everything constantly, always, forever, but that's because it costs half the price.
Yeah,
and
so does
it caters
the Switch.
to children. Yeah, right. For the Xbox thing, it is because they're more available because they were less in demand. That's my assumption from this. PlayStation for the last 2 years or year and a half has been outselling them essentially 2-1. And for the last 2 months, so like the first kind of time where it's gone the other way. And it's possibly because Xbox is doing interesting things and Game Pass is definitely appealing and stuff like that. Those big acquisitions might have been helping as well. But I think from what I can tell, you can walk into stores and buy an Xbox now if you want to.
It's funny, the Game Pass thing, though. I saw a really interesting take from Gene Park, who is a games writer for the Washington Post. He's sort of the most legitimate games journalist on the internet because he works for like a real...
actual journalist, yeah.
Yeah. He had a great take, which was like, he doesn't use Game Pass because, well, he uses it to play indies, like we were talking about before, but then he doesn't buy the indies. So, like, he sort of just uses it in a very strange way, like, to experience games he would never have bought, but then those developers also don't get money, like, direct sales from him, because he's only using it to dip in that way. That resonates with me. That's sort of how I've used it, too. Like, I don't use it for big blockbuster games. I'll buy them on PlayStation. I just use it for weird little dip-ins occasionally.
Do we know that the developers don't get anything, or is it something like Apple Music, Spotify kind of thing where, like, oh, if you get it streamed, you'll get some money?
They get something, but it's an upfront cost, just like PlayStation Plus. Like, you're given
are we sure of that? Because, like, I don't know, it just seemed interesting if you're like, hey, you've got this many downloads this month of your game and we'll pay you this much money for that.
And my understanding is it's like the PlayStation Plus thing, kind of like what we're talking about with Oddworld the other week.
Well, they make money out of it. And, like, honestly, because he's like, I wouldn't have played this before, maybe it's money they would never have gotten in the first place if it wasn't on Game Pass. And I think it's one of those things, especially if you're a small developer, you're better off exposing an audience to your stuff, even if you're not making heaps of money, but it just gets your name out there and people like it and they want to see more. And similar to how, like, I like Drinkbox because I got Guacamelee on my Vita.
It's Melee.
Melee.
I believe it's Melee. But
I'm going to say Melee. Melee.
You're the French guy. I don't know. You tell me. Govinda, I don't know where our good friend D-Labs are this month, but I have the PS Plus games for May for you. Would you like to know more about them?
Throw them at me.
We got FIFA 2022, which I'm not going to touch, but it's apparently decent enough. Yeah, I know you will. You'll touch it all over. We have Tribes of Midgard. That one hurts a little bit because, of course, I bought that.
What a mistake that was.
It was. And then we finally have Curse of the Dead Gods, which is another indie that I've circled around several times, but ultimately, I might actually check that out.
Yeah, look, it's fair enough. I don't have much to say. I like FIFA, but actually I play it with Sean, and that'll be fun for free.
And Tribes of Midgard, like, we dug into a little bit. There's actually been quite a bit of content released for it, but I don't know that I care enough to check it out.
No, I do not.
And now, Govinda, it's time for the news we care about. In some surprising news, the massive Embracer Group has acquired some storied and much-loved IP from, of all publishers, Square Enix, for a price that would make the Microsofts and Sonys of the world blush. For the comparatively measly sum of $300 million, Embracer has secured for themselves iconic IP and the studios behind them, such as Tomb Raider, Deus Ex, Legacy of Kain, Thief, and more than 50 other back-catalogue games. The studios in question are Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, and Square Enix Montreal, which have a combined headcount of some 1,100 staff. Square Enix is, however, keeping the Just Cause, Outriders, and Life is Strange franchises. From Square Enix's perspective, this move is in line with the company's stated goal of leaving Western development to Western developers. Square Enix will instead double down on its Japanese studios, but in a worrying statement has said that the funds from this acquisition will be used as, quote, investments in fields including blockchain, AI, and the cloud, end quote. Important to note, Govinda's note here, Eidos Montreal has several projects in the works, all on Unreal Engine 5, which is, what is it, Govinda? It's the industry's latest buzzword.
Well, it's just Unreal Engine 5. We've been using Unreal Engine 4 for a long time. There was that thing a little while ago where people complaining that the demos on the new PlayStation Plus were going to mean developers had to make these demos, and they're like, oh, the poor developers. I was like, look, Unreal Engine 5 has so many time-saving things in there that they're going to be okay. But then that was a lie anyway, and PlayStation is actually going to make those 2-hour demos for them. Anyway, we got sidetracked. Yuck on the blockchain, AI, and the cloud stuff at the end there.
That should go without saying at this point.
It's interesting. I don't like... I can't believe they got it for that cheap, firstly.
It's so wild. It's so little money.
Although,
I believe
I
that's...
don't care about most of them.
Just off the top of my head, I believe that's comparable to what Sony paid for Insomniac alone. And that was a steal. Oh, yeah, for sure. But they're getting, 3 studios and a bunch of IP? Like, that is cheap as shit. So funny how this all works. Like, we were talking last week about Amy Hennig and Legacy of Kain. Well, here we go. It's been acquired now, and they've said in a statement, Embracer, you can look forward to new games in these franchises. Like, there will be a new Thief game. It's very strange to me.
I think this really reinforces the idea that PlayStation is probably going to buy Square Enix.
That has been floating around, and that was...
It trims the fat.
Yeah, a few weeks ago we were talking about insiders talking about big PlayStation rumors. According to those same insiders, and nothing has been confirmed, this is what they were talking about, that maybe there was a Square Enix buyout in the works. And there still could be. We just don't know as of yet.
It's interesting that Square Enix actually sold part of itself by selling Square Enix Montreal.
Yeah. Did they rebrand?
But I guess they were probably just working on kind of more Western stuff that they weren't into and wasn't working for them. I did see something, it was unsubstantiated, to take it with a grain of salt, but Square Enix has lost a whole lot of money from Marvel games and again, leaning into that Western thing that they're trying to obviously get out of now.
Which is really interesting that they are actively doing it. It's like they're distancing themselves from Western. It's not like we're not going to do it in future. It's like we don't want any connection to it in the past. It
feels like that interview that they did last week was to get ahead of this.
Yeah,
like, hey, this is what we're thinking about. This is why we don't like it. This is what we're doing, whatever. And then bam, we sold a whole bunch of shit.
It's almost like these companies all have in-depth marketing strategies and they plan these things out ahead of time.
Something like that.
It's a shame though, because who knows? They're keeping the studios. Maybe we will get another good Tomb Raider from Crystal Dynamics, but I don't know. It feels... Who made Guardians of the Galaxy? Was that Crystal?
No, Eidos Montreal made Guardians of the Galaxy.
That sucks. I mean, maybe they'll get it.
It doesn't, I guess. Like, why? Like, I don't see why. Like, it's not like the studios are shutting down or anything. They're just not going to be owned by Square Enix.
Yeah, sorry, my take is entirely backwards. This is actually positive for me because I want another Guardians of the Galaxy, whereas Square Enix, bizarrely, said that it underperformed after, winning our Game of the Year. Which is
honestly, and it was in Game of the Year contention with a lot of them, and a lot of that was because it was a very soft year last year for sure. But it was a great game. I really enjoyed that, and I still think about going back and playing it again just to have some fun. I don't know who is Embracer. Can you explain that to me? I've never heard of them until this acquisition.
It's complicated. They're a name that does pop up in the background. I like to think of them as the Nordic Tencent. They are sort of an entity that secretly controls the video game industry, but from Northern Europe instead of China. So
who do they have at the moment?
Govinda, they own dozens of studios, and while most of them are bad, and you have probably never heard of any of them, they do have some pretty interesting additions. They own Gearbox Publishing, Software, Studio Quebec, Studio Montreal, Gearbox Publishing San Francisco. They own Deep Silver, which is a publisher in its own right. They own my beloved Warhorse Studios. Have you ever heard of Kingdom Come Deliverance? It's a really nerdy historical game.
I have, yeah. I've never played it, whatever, so I know it exists.
It's like they're collecting AA tier studios. Like, they don't really have, with the exception of Gearbox, which I would consider, up there. It's a lot of fairly average studios, to be kind.
Well, luckily they just picked up a couple more average studios.
Ayo. No, these are really good.
These are probably the biggest ones in their lineup.
I would say definitely these are the best studios they now have. Without a doubt. Like, it's a head and shoulders above anything else here. Except maybe my beloved Warhorse Studios.
Are you super excited to be able to get a NFT in Final Fantasy XIV?
I would love to know what's going on over there. It's like they've got some kind of NFT Jeffrey Epstein. He's like, hey guys, this is going to be the cool thing. Like, they're just taking advice from some wild tech bro who is
I feel like the blockchain is going to be the foundation for this like crazy metaverse, and we'll all be living in the blockchain.
And that's fine. I just wish I didn't have to hear about it. It's so boring. It's so boring to hear about. Like, I hate those words.
Look, of all those three, blockchain, AI, and cloud, AIs are interesting to me because then that's like, you can incorporate that into games, you know? Enemy AI, it's an important feature. And sometimes it's really bad and sometimes it's really good.
It is interesting. This is just sort of a segue. Like, AI in strategy games really hasn't improved in more than a decade. It's one of those weird things that is lagging behind. Like graphics, performance, everything else is like moving forward leaps and bounds. Like modern Total War games aren't much more, like the AI isn't more complicated than they were 10 years ago. It's really interesting if you look into it. That's just not something, I assume it's really complicated, but it's not something that's
it surely is. There's a Gran Turismo came out recently, obviously, and they have like there's just kind of their standard racing AI in there, but they have this AI they're going to launch at some point, unspecified time in the future, that means that like racing against an AI car will feel a lot more like racing against a person. And they did this thing where they got like esports racers and all these people to actually race against the AI, and the AI was outstanding against them, and they were all blown away because they were like, AI is usually like you max it out and you can beat them, and then the only time you can actually get a challenge is if you're versing people. And so I think AI is something that we can use this extra power in these consoles to get more from. And that was something that I think you're like, okay, graphics, they get better, but they don't get like exponentially better anymore. But I think AI is that thing in the background that can make games feel a whole lot better.
Yeah, it really increases the replayability. Like even I was just playing some more Crusader Kings. I'm so blown away by the AI in that, which is literally thousands of factions running simultaneously, all acting behind the scenes and only interacting with you occasionally, like as it's appropriate. But they are all
like
interacting
they're
with
declaring
each other.
wars across the whole globe, and then all of a sudden you're part of that. And you're like, oh.
So much so that you can start a game of that game and just watch the AI. And that's like a subgenre on YouTube. You just watch and observe them interact with each other. It's really weird.
Can you see what they're actually doing though? Like what hooks they're using and like?
I don't know that. I've never done it.
So it'd be cool if you could have like a log of the actual decisions the AI is making. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. And yeah, I'm here for it.
Yeah.
But Govinda, you know what else I'm here for?
Getting the fuck out of here.
Yes, please let me go. Please.
Well, Khayl, this has been episode 48 of Long Live Play. Some would call it the number one Australian PlayStation podcast. I would call it just the number one podcast, personally saying.
I would definitely say it is the best video game podcast that I am on.
I would say it is the second best video game podcast that I've ever done.
Which, yeah, I see what you did there. Nice little callback.
No, I take it back. This is the best PlayStation podcast I've ever made and produced.
Okay, yeah,
which I think is a big deal. That's one out of a pretty good list of 2 podcasts.
3-ish, depending how you count it.
What's the third?
Maybe
the one that we did for like 2 episodes.
Yeah, there was like a stupid little Overwatch one for a hot minute. There was
there
was just the comedy one.
But that wasn't a PlayStation one.
Yeah, look, it's fine. We did this last time. Get me out of here.
No, have you heard about Elon Musk buying Twitter?
Yeah, I was going to say, you want to have a quick
follow
chat
us on
about
Twitter
Elon
at LongLivePod. Follow us on Instagram at LongLivePod. Link trees there with all the other ones. You can follow us individually if you like. Honestly, if you ever want to DM me stuff, just do it, dude. Send me a photo of a butt or something, dude. Let's go.
Whoa. All right.
That's a burp because I was drinking beer. My name's Govinda. I've been me. Khayl's been him. Fuck off.
See you in 3 weeks for that hour-long ranking all the Final Fantasy games that was promised by Govinda.
You better get ready for episode 52, that 1 year special, baby. It's going to be something special. It's not going to be special. Goodbye.
Goodbye.